presentation. Okay, there it is.
Yeah.
All right. So our study was really looking very specifically at our population. So Teresa and I both teach at Gallaudet University. We have a mission of serving deaf students. And so while we have a diverse group of students, we do teach all of our classes in sign language. And with the switch to online communication, there was a lot of concern that the social piece that our university offered, that's really a supportive feature of Gallaudet, would be lost. And so we were concerned about knowing really, were there barriers to well-being, social isolation, and a sense of self-efficacy when shifting to an online model. So we switched to emergency online instruction in the spring of 2020. Next slide, please. So we did a mixed method study. We did a quantitative analysis and did a survey. And then we also had some open-ended survey questions that students filled in. For the quantitative portion on the survey, students talked about their we found that students had high levels of self-efficacy. And while they had increased social isolation, it wasn't different than pre-pandemic, that there was actually quite a bit of social isolation that was going on in our population of students anyway. And interestingly, our emerging adults, the 18 to 24 crew, had higher levels of well-being than the older aged students. Next slide, please.
I just want to add to that, Beth. Yesterday, I presented a study on negative life experiences, substance use, well-being, and resilience. And within that study, I also found high levels of well-being and resilience. And I've seen this reported kind of consistently in the literature, that interestingly, the deaf and hard of hearing students kind of come in with high levels of well-being and coping strategies. And so I just wanted to kind of throw that out there, that that's not, this finding is not unusual.
Thank you.
Next one.
Next slide. So our open-ended questions, students wrote in short answers here. And we got both negative and positive feedback about the emergency switch to online learning. So as most of you who work in the university systems know, it was all of a sudden that we had to shift from our face-to-face instruction to online platforms. Some online classes were already set up to be this way, but for the face-to-face instruction, there was not a lot of time to adapt curriculum and so forth. And so that said, the negative things that the students reported were related to technology malfunctions, glitches, freezing, that sort of thing. The professors being unprepared for online instruction, and then more related to sort of our specific variables were the physical distance created social isolation, and that there were also distractions in the home learning environment. As far as positive feedback from the students about how this transition went, they reported that there was a lot of flexibility with online learning, that it was easier to not have to commute, and that professors were really flexible and really met them where they were. And really a lot of our students, which may be related to the age range well-being factor, a lot of our students were already familiar with online technology like Zoom and Blackboard and some of the other platforms that we used. Next slide, please. So the conclusions, and I'm going to expand on this a little bit here, but students didn't experience increased loneliness, and they felt happy despite the pandemic conditions. And they felt like they could handle the demands of the switch. And so what's really interesting about this that is unique to our pandemic on emergency online switch was that there was a lot of university communication, that the students really felt like they could communicate with their professors, that even if there was technology issues, that the professors were available. There was a lot of website updates and emails and social media and town halls that the university did to just check in with the students, because I think everybody was concerned that that they would feel disconnected from the university itself. And in past research, communication with universities has been a strong indicator related to trust of the administration during emergencies. So like when the swine flu happened and some hurricane, I think Hurricane Katrina have been documented in the literature, just how universities fared with those. And really that strong communication of the administration is a big piece of it, and professors being flexible and available. And then students not only being able to adapt to the online environment, but in some cases preferring this, right? Feeling like, oh, I don't have to come to campus. I don't have to commute. And I already know how to navigate an online environment, which again, may be somewhat related to age, but in, the current zeitgeist, really, we all are expected to know how to use technology. We're presenting on Zoom right now. So this was one of the things that we, as a program, really took into consideration. Oh, okay, so if students are liking this online learning as a platform, this could be something we consider in adaptation and creating more access to students that maybe can't move to DC where we're located. And because we had real-time technology support with our Gallaudet tech service, and we had access to Zoom, we were able to give face-to-face lectures, and we sign our lectures. So, that visual communication was still available, and anytime there was an issue, tech was on it very quickly. And then the social clubs and so forth just converted to online, and so there were graduation was held online, and there were clubs that were held online, and the honor society was held online. And so all of these things, we didn't just shut down programs, we just adapted them and converted them. And the students seemed to have positive outcomes in terms of our variables because of all of these different things that we had done to make sure that they were supported. And something that's really, really important to emphasize is because we have such a large and unique population of students that are deaf and hard of hearing and deafblind, and we do have hearing students as well, but it's expected that everybody know American Sign Language. Even if you come from, our international students who are deaf and use different signed languages, right? Because there are many different signed languages around the world. They are expected to know ASL because that's the signed language that we use on campus for our lectures. And so, having this unique population of students and this unique cohesiveness of a deaf community, I think really contributed to the resilience there was sort of this feeling of we're all in it together, right? And I think that was reflected in the findings of what the students had said about professors being available and not feeling like they were unhappy despite having to deal with all of these adaptations. And so can we slide, please?
There we are.
And that's us. So feel free to reach out to us about questions about social work or things related to our research. Teresa and I both do quite a bit of research in other areas related to deaf individuals with mental health and human trafficking and that sort of thing. So we are available for contact.
One of the things I want to add to, our campus is integrating to in-person learning again, but both Beth and I teach in the graduate Master of Social Work program. And what we found, because the deaf community is a global community and we have a high percentage of international deaf students, that we've decided to change our MSW model to an online program. So that's going through the councils at the university for approval and vote. But that this has turned out to be a tool for social justice, actually allowing deaf students all over the world to have access to education that is communicated in their own language. So that's kind of a cool thing that's come out from all of this as well. And if anyone has any questions, bring them on.